So I think that means I am to say welcome. Welcome to the MPower Hour. My picture's not here, but let me share with you that my name is Tada Tuck Self, and I am the facilitator host of this panel today. I am not going to be talking a lot because I think it's going to be important for you to be able to hear from I'm going to call y'all luminaries that are here today to share their experience with the BG5 system, the BG5 certification, in some cases, their excitement for embarking into that process of being certified. I will share here at the beginning to give us a setup that we have, and I'll let each of you introduce yourselves in a moment. Um, I work for the BG5 Institute as an internal instructor. Also, I am here today, obviously, with these four panelists. Sarah McGowan is here with us incognito, who is the Assistant Director of the BG5 Institute. So Sarah is here as support today as well. It is important, I believe, to share with you all before we get started that the BG5 Institute is the official source, as you see here, of the career and business application of the human design system. And we excitedly and train and certify career and business consultants. Those are the individuals that you're going to hear from today. Individuals who have embarked upon this certification in order to support themselves and or their clients personally in their careers, empower their teams, empower managers, organizations, those types of things. And these are a couple of the bullet points that you gather in going through the BG5 system certification. Again, I'm going to have these individuals share their personal experience. However, you can see here that there is a lot of information that comes with being a part of this great system. Not only do you learn how to individually use your human design, BG5 career design for yourself personally in your own career, it is available to be used in partnerships, small groups, large groups, and most importantly, that thing that we all spend the lion's share of our time doing, our time, talents, and energies, and making money. What we are here to do is to make the process fun, enjoyable, easy, creative, and hopefully give you information when you go through the certification to know what that ideal and best environment is for you to work in, as well as sharing that with your clients. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking because I want you to be able to hear from the individuals that are here. Sarah and I are excited that we have a representation of each of our individual career types. We have as our initiator, Charmaine Stradford. We have as our advisor, LaTia Few. We have as one of the express
Unknown
builders,
caller.
known caller. We have three express builders. That would be Vanessa and Sarah and myself. And then we are very fortunate to have Brian Mason here as our evaluator. Also, Vanessa is a little crunched with time today. But what I thought might be a fun thing to do is to let each of you introduce yourselves, just a little bit about your background and what drew you initially to this certification process. And then, Vanessa, I'm going to give you an opportunity to share a little bit before you have to step away, and the rest of us continue to speak. So, why don't we initiate off with you, Charmaine, if you will, yeah, start the process.
Okay, I always get picked on because I'm the initiator, Tuck, but I'll start with short and simple. I came to BG5. It intrigued me. Tuck had done uh, she read my design, and quite frankly, I didn't understand a lot of it. But it was so on point that the next year I took the foundational courses. My intention here is to start the certification process at the end of January. It just brought an incredible amount of clarity for me. It also, I think what it wiped out for me was I was able to be who I am and no longer be embarrassed about it or have to explain it or have to do a number of things. So it was just enlightening. And I think I've taken every personality test there is out there. And this one just made the absolute most sense to me. And as an initiator, it just doesn't take a lot. It's either right or wrong. I feel it or I don't. And I know it to be true or it's not, and I walk away. Um, so that's my background is I'm a retired AT&T director. So I spent 37 years in corporate America where we live in our head all of the time. And that was another issue that BG5 gave me was I really I don't lead from the head. I lead from the heart. And I was always told that was incorrect. So again, coming to BG5 just gave me clarity on trust my heart, trust my instincts, and go with that. Is there anything else, Tuck, you want me to say right now?
We'll talk a little bit more because I want you to talk about your ICF certification, how you're going to be integrating BG.
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
Just to give people a feel for who it is that we are and what it is that we're up to in coming together. So thank you, and I will come back to you. How about you, LaTia?
Hi everyone, I'm LaTia Few. My background is I'm an agile project manager by trade. I am also the founder of Unmasked by Design. That's my new brand based on my BG5 profile. And I would say how I came to BG5 is I went through a divorce in 2021 and simply did not know who I was outside of my ex-partner. So I went on a self-discovery journey, a self-healing journey that included intensive therapy. I participated in energy healing services. I took solo travel to Mexico and El Salvador. And during my travels, I stumbled across human design, and I was just simply blown away by the information it provided. And it gave me that clarity I felt I've been looking for so long. So I went down a rabbit hole, and the project manager in me wanted something more practical. That's how I discovered BG5, which is the practical application of human design, and the rest is history. And like Charmaine, I took the foundation classes with Tuck, fell in love with her humor, her ability to really break down complex information in such a fun, simple way. And I decided to get certified. So that's how I came to BG5.
Thank you, LaTia. And we're going to hear lots more about what you are doing with the BG5 system and the work that you are doing today. So thank you, thank you. And she may get tired of me saying this about her, yeah, but there's nothing few about LaTia. I like to call her LaTia Mini because she is up to many things in the world with this body of work. That, Brian, brings us to you, our evaluator.
Thanks, Tuck. I'm excited to be a part of this panel and see everybody again. I too, like many individuals, went through the foundations and the certification course through Tuck and met all these wonderful people. And I think that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about the program was getting the opportunity to learn about other people and other career types and how they interact. Um, and as an evaluator, I really do like to step back and look at the bigger picture and see how all the pieces kind of come together. And the BG5 framework really helped me uh, use the language and put some clarity around the things that I really like to do and how I show up in the workplace and then in life. Um, there's several themes that I think you're going to hear through our conversation. I think a lot of us are kind of like assessment junkies. I know I was with a lot of openness in my career type, as you'll see from the screen. Identity and role clarity have always been something that I've struggled with. And I stumbled upon BG5 back in early 2021 when I was managing a team in a corporate environment and just really struggling with how I was presenting myself because I felt like every day I was just being whipsawed by the different energies of the office. Some days I felt like a builder. Some days I felt like an advisor. Some days I felt like just mass confusion and very frustrated and disappointed. And there just wasn't a lot of surprise in my life. And as you learn about BG5 language, you'll learn that these are keystone markers of how you're showing up and being successful. And so 2021, I went through the foundations course, really learned how that the flexibility that an evaluator has within their design is meant to be there, made me feel comfortable, made me feel more aligned with myself probably for the first time, and just really kind of sprouted from there. And I'm excited to share more about how BG5 and the work really is intersecting with career alignment and systems clarity for the work that I'm doing, and pass it over back to you, Todd.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to hear. That's why I put this here. Brian is going to be launching his reflective impact system this year. So I thought it would be fun to hear from you about that. Vanessa, it is up. You're up next. And I would love for you, since you are short on time as you're introducing yourself. One of the reasons I wanted you here was when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, your enthusiasm and your excitement in landing, I'm going to put in quotes, your perfect additional job work. I got inspired and invited you to come and share how you're using your BG5 design in this new career, how everything has just shown up for you in the most miraculous of ways. So over to you.
All right. Well, I'll just back it up a little bit about how I found BG5. So just like everybody else has said already, I've also been like a really big personal development, self-understanding junkie. When I first heard about human design, I was like, how have I not heard of this before? Because a lot of the systems that it synthesizes are systems that I have studied in depth. So I immediately just got a big fat yes response, like the second I found out about human design. And I ended up start doing a, what would be considered a pop human design certification. And I learned some stuff, but I recognized that there were a lot of holes. There were a lot of missing parts. I did a lot of self-study as well. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, do I want to go through the International Human Design School analyst training? And my emotional authority was like, I don't know, I was looking into it. And that's when I discovered BG5, which I had never even heard of. And for me, as somebody who's been an entrepreneur for many, many years, working in a variety of different industries and knowing that my focus, I am very business focused, I was like, yes, this is the place. And I dove into certification. I got certified with Tuck as well, and LaTia and Brian were in my cohort. I am now halfway through a year of profit potential training with Karen Sherwood. I absolutely love BG5, and not only the process of learning and understanding the system better, but the change that you go through internally as you receive this information. It's not just like something that you're learning conceptually, it's something that really changes you. And it's funny because you said job. I'm like, I do not have a job. Like, if you look at my chart, you see that I am not somebody who would do well with the job. I do not do well with 9 to 5s. I do not do well with people telling me what to do and where to be and when to be there. I do have some really amazing clients, however. And the one that Huck mentioned that I'm super excited about is it's a company called bodygraph.com, who is a human design software company that allows human design professionals to embed charts on their websites, to create their own human design reports, to use as lead magnets or to sell. And they're just a really wonderful organization. And last year at some point, I've been with them since almost the beginning. The company's about 4 years old, and about 3.5 years ago, I joined as a customer. I love their product. I love their customer service. I love the team. Like, they're really genuine people that want to support their clients and their customers. And in early summer, they had sent out an email to their client base looking for people to create short little educational journeys for their clients in their audience. And it wasn't anything paid. It was just more about like exposure and getting exposed to people. And I got a yes response. You know, I waited it out. I love teaching. I love creating content, especially if it involves talking about human design. Like, try to get me to shut up. Good luck with that. And so I responded to it, and I got on a call with the founder, and we had a really great conversation. I created a couple of little short things for them, and I got really amazing feedback. Like, he absolutely loved what I had done, and it was very specific feedback. It wasn't just, you know, it wasn't really like good job, but it was very specific about what he loved about it. And like a few months later, they sent out basically an email again to their audience saying that they're looking to hire a full-time community manager. And part of the role included creating podcasts, creating monthly workshops and things of that nature. And of course, like, I got a yes response to this, but also a no response, because I'm like, I can't work full time. Like, I'm running a business. I spend so much time in continuing education because my first line absolutely loves it. But if I were looking for a job, this would be pretty cool. And so I just kind of sat on it. And then over time, I was like, you know what? I already have a relationship with the founder. I'm just going to send him an email and be like, hey, would you be willing to maybe split this role? Because I would be more than happy to do the podcast episodes, to do the monthly workshops, to do some BG5 consulting. And within like, I don't know, 30 minutes of sending the email, I got an email back saying, do you have time for a call? So we got on a call. We had a really great conversation. He was super excited about, you know, that I'm also a BG5 consultant. We talked about consulting. We talked about ideas we had for the community, all of these things. And now they are my biggest client on a monthly retainer basis. Plus, we do additional special projects. It's just been so awesome. I do regular BG5 business consulting with the founder. I create content. I do education. I engage with the community in different ways. And we have all kinds of stuff planned for the future. And it's just been like such a beautiful example of really following your strategy and authority and connecting with the right people at the right time.
And also, Vanessa, you are doing the BG5 Live with Mike, right? Still?
I am also doing the BG5 Live with Mike. So this is another one where I think we're going on, well, we're about a year and a half in now, maybe longer. I don't know. It feels like we've been doing it for a while, which was another one of those connecting with the right people and the right opportunities when following your strategy and authority. Because when I was looking at first signing up for foundations in BG5, I was looking through the instructors and I saw you and I really resonated with you. And I was like, if I start foundations now, which at the time you weren't teaching that one, I will graduate foundations just in time to get into Tuck certification. And that's what happened. And then I connected with Mike because I literally was every single thing the BG5 Business Institute was offering for free. I did all of the webinars, like literally everything. I showed up on everything. And I connected with Mike about one of his webinars, which I watched on replay. I really loved it. There was something very specific that he taught that I'm like, I haven't heard anybody else talk about this. And it's something that's very significant to me. And so I sent him an email just saying how I really appreciated that. And then before you know it, I think I emailed Sarah as well. And she's like, hey, why don't you TA for Mike? And I was like, okay. So I've been through foundations and certification multiple times now, both as a student and as a TA. And we just really connected. And when he was asked to do BG5 Live, he asked me to be the co-host. And here we are.
You are. Yeah. So thank you so much, Vanessa. I just think it's important for people because I've been asked the question quite often, what's possible with the BG5 certification, and to see what you are doing with yours. I'm going to say with your 3420, how you are manifesting in a very powerful kind of way. And also your 14.2, right? Direction, how you're creating so many beautiful ways to spend your time and your talents and your energies, not only bringing your own expertise to the exercise, but your expertise with the BG5 as well. So are you good? I know you're short on time. Was there anything else for you to share before I put a question forth for all of you to respond to?
I just want to say for anybody that is considering the BG5 Institute and learning BG5, it is such a wonderful investment. Obviously, follow your own decision-making strategy, as we say in BG5, your strategy and authority in traditional human design, it is not just a place where you learn information that will help you guide other people, but it is an experience that really truly like changes you from the inside over time. So it's not like an overnight thing, but it really changes you over time. And it's such a beautiful gift. And I'm so grateful for this community and the people that I have connected with as a result.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. And appreciate all the work that you're doing to support the BG5 Institute. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Vanessa mentioned the investment aspect of the BG5 certification. If you look at the website, you can see that it is a 3-semester process. I am curious and would love to hear from each of you in terms of the investment as well as the process, because it's a 3-semester, and for some of us it's been a 5-semester process, what that value and what that benefit has been before we go and look specifically at what you're doing personally in your careers with your certification. So who would like to answer that first, or would you like me to point to somebody?
I'll go just because I have to leave soon. I mean, obviously, it's an investment of both time and money, and it is my favorite investment of time and money because my first line, continuing education is always my biggest annual tax deduction. I know not everybody feels that way, but it is such a worthwhile investment. Like I said, like it really, not only do you get such depth of information, um, it really changes you, and it also helps you really connect with so many amazing people, like the people in this community, like the people that you will meet as a result of having this certification. The process, it's intense. I'm not going to say it's not intense. Like you definitely are giving a lot of yourself. You're receiving a lot. Um, it's a lot of material, a lot of beautiful material, and it's great because you get lifetime access to it. You can watch the recordings as often as you want. I still go back and review the things that I have learned. Every time you watch something, it might even be a year, 2 years later, you rewatch something you learned a while ago and you receive it in a whole different level where you are, wherever you are in the frequency in your design now compared to where you were then. So it's really an investment that it keeps on giving. The return on the investment is lifetime.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if you have to leave while we are in conversation, again, thank you for sharing your information, experience, and expertise with us, Vanessa, Naja. So, how about LaTia Few? I'll come to you next. Do you
I would
remember?
say, I would say Vanessa summed that up perfectly. It's definitely a financial investment, a time investment, but with the material, as Vanessa stated, you get to rewatch, you get to reread, you get all of the PowerPoints, you get contact information for the BG5 community. Tuck does really well with making herself available if you have any questions. If you want to talk offline, Tuck and I talk all the time. So, I would say it's definitely worth the investment. It's something that it will pay itself back, as soon as you get the certification. And for me, it allowed me to be creative with the certification and how I use the certification, which I'll discuss later. So yeah, I think it's worth the money. It's worth the money and it's worth the time as long as you have the time and as long as you really want to, if you're ready to go through this journey. Don't sign up if you're not ready, but if you're ready to take the journey, I would definitely advise you to come and join us.
Beautiful. Thank you, LaTia.
I
Mr.
would
Mason?
share, I would share too that uh, the benefits are applied to so many different elements of your work experience. Whether you are working for a corporation or you decide to go off and be an entrepreneur, you can apply these skills and this knowledge in all of those areas. Uh, I had an experience working within a corporate environment, working with a small team. And through this process, I was able to uh, get a better sense of some of the other people that were on my team and how I fit into that team, and then how I could be more successful around these other individuals. And it was a unique experience to be able to work uh, with a builder and with an advisor and kind of see how they come together and how to um, uh, just complement each other, and then kind of have a better understanding of where those friction points would come with those relationships. And so I would encourage anyone who is looking to really get to know their own identity, their own worth, their how they want to apply it to themselves, but then also how they want to then show up in the workplace again, whether that's in a corporate environment, small business, or entrepreneurial. I think you would find value in all of those elements. And I wouldn't want someone to be afraid, like, well, I'm a consultant. Well, there's internal consultants, external consultants. Consultants is a word. Don't let that stop you either from jumping in and growing in this journey.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. And if anybody has any questions for any of these Illuminaries certified consultants, please put any questions that you have into the chat box. Charmaine's in somewhat of a different position. She's been through the foundation course, she took a break, and now she is embarking upon the certification process. What has inspired you again, Charmaine, to make the investment not only financially, but in the time? Because it is a year's commitment to go through the process of the 3 semesters.
And thank you. I appreciate what everyone has said so far. I do have a different perspective on it. And I will say it this way. The 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 ability to understand, first of all, who I was huge. It was a lightning bolt for me. It didn't, I know, Vanessa, you said it came in time over time. It was a lightning bolt for me. And it was, I felt like I could breathe. One of the things Tuck talks about in corporate America, 70% of folks in corporate America are builders, and yet we're trained to be initiators. And I couldn't, and I then would act like a builder when I was really an initiator. And the conflicts that show up in that space are amazing, right? And I'm probably not saying anything that's unreal or you haven't experienced if you've been in that environment. But here's where it really made a big difference for me was in my own family. So the investment isn't about, oh, can I go make some more money somewhere else? The reason I took a break is because I had a lot of things that was going on for me, and I wanted to make sure that I cleared my table, my plate, so that when I came back to BG5, I could give it my full attention. And that was important to me because I had gotten such a significant benefit from the foundational courses on a very personal level. I was able to talk to my father differently. I was able to engage with my brother differently because I knew their design vis-a-vis my design. And I could take a deep breath and say, you know what? It just is the way it is, and it's okay. That's the big deal is it's okay. So many times we're trying to fix each other or fix ourselves. What BG5 teaches us mostly, we're all perfect. We're fine. And so there's nothing there to fix. It's more about understanding and appreciating and valuing and being able to breathe and go forward. So I think that's my big thing. And you can I'm sure you can feel my exuberance over this because it's such a life-altering experience. And that I at that point, there isn't enough money. That's too much money to get to that point.
Take it you're complete. I'm here with
I have
Dan.
a lot more I could say, but yes, I am complete with that question.
Good.
Thank you, Tuck.
Yeah. One of the there are many things I love about going through this process. I love meeting people from around the country and around the world, looking at the different things that we do. And I find it fascinating as we move out of the certification process, and even in your case, the foundation classes, how we integrate this information into the work that we are currently doing. I know you are in process of becoming an ICF certified coach. I know Brian has a certification as well. Before we talk to Brian and LaTia specifically, Charmaine, about what they're doing with their certifications, how do you, is that part of how come you're moving forward with the certification process? Do you plan on integrating this information with your ICF?
Absolutely. Actually, I see it as a little bit more of a three-legged stool. So yes, I am going for the ICF certification. That was my original intent. And then BG5 came along, and I thought, wow, what a way to understand when I'm talking to a new client. If I know their design, I'll know what words to use. I know how to appeal to them. I know where their sensitivities are. And I'll know if it's a good fit between coach and client as well, right? So that's the other thing. The other thing I wanted to add is AI, and I do come from a tech background. AI is prolific right now, and everyone's throwing the AI word around. And so that's another piece of it is people are trying to figure out where they fit in as it relates to AI. And there is a significant fear factor associated with that as well. And so I think now with BG5, the coaching and the advent of AI and how profound and how it will change our world over the next several years. I think BG5 is going to allow people, again, you're going to hear me say it over and over again, allow them to take a breath and be okay. And so that's really my intent to bring those three things together: technology, the human design, and the coaching opportunity.
Very nice. I know we've had conversations about moving from the age of planning into the age of individuality and just had our own brainstorming conversation
Mhm.
about how the corporate environment is changing and how the BG5 is positioned to provide a huge benefit and huge value moving forward. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So I'm going to come to you next, Brian, and give you the floor, the table, the space to speak to what you've been up to and what you are getting ready to launch as well.
Sure. I'd be happy to. Uh, is there an opportunity to share a screen real quickly?
Yep. See if you
Okay,
can. If
I can. Okay. Yeah. So with my experience and my journey so far, it's been interesting. So my background has been in financial services and regulatory compliance, which kind of fits with an evaluator as you learn more about what an evaluator type does. Um, I'm also an ICS certified coach and a ProSci certified change management practitioner. And so over the last 5 years, going through the BG5 courses and self-assessment, trying to figure out what I want to do and how do I want to show up. It's been an interesting journey. I think what Vanessa said, it takes time. And for me, it has taken several years to kind of figure out what does that mean and how does that fit for me. And recently I had a conversation with Sarah McGowan, which was an eye opener as well, because as an evaluator, I was getting very fatigued with a lot of one-on-one coaching. And as you go through the program, you learn a lot about one-on-one dynamics and one-on-one relationships. And I found that I really enjoyed the small group and the large group environments, um, and at least coaching to those types of situations. And so the last couple of years, I've been really shifting away from like direct one-on-one to figuring out like how do I show up more with my evaluator functions in a more functional way. And so I've been leveraging those experiences to try to put together a program that will help people prepare for the future of work, which is exactly what Charmaine is talking about. And so I've been shifting a little bit away from the like one-on-one to a little bit more human-centered systemic work, um, which from an evaluator perspective, um, I have a natural tendency to orient towards observations, pattern recognitions, and timing. Um, um, I generally see things over a longer period of time. And so I was trying to, again, put that into practice. And so I basically have been able to try to package those evaluator functions into an operating system that works for me that I call the reflective impact system that really focuses on diagnostic, clear like diagnosis and diagnostic activities, fewer false starts, helping with less self-doubt, and helping people with a little more cleaner, helping them with cleaner decisions and overall clarity. And my program that I'm launching really aligns with the BG5 business skill set assessment. And so my approach is really taking a look at kind of more functional activities, more practical application. And so I have a career alignment compass that really helps individuals focus on diagnosing really kind of where they sit with their career or where they might be transitioning, helping people through that preliminary change process, because we waste a lot of time when we really don't know where we want to go. And then what I've been really excited about building and launching is what I've been calling a cultural friction index and a cultural friction audit. Again, really based off of our BG5 business skills assessment, which is the key elements that are important for smaller businesses to really be profitable and be successful. And then I'm doing that really through briefs, which is just like quick information, some general diagnostic work, and then some advisory services. And so if anybody follows me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I like to put out not a lot of content for an evaluator. I'm not always building and putting a lot out, but I generally like to kind of capture what the weather feels like and kind of where we're sort of going, and then deliver that. And then if that really resonates with individuals, I've been finding that people generally are like, oh, okay, yeah, I like that longer term view. And again, as an evaluator, for me, my approach is pretty calm, laid back, and it's about helping people find that clarity and finding that calm within the storm that they're kind of working through right now. And so the reflective impact system really was my way of taking BG5, the evaluator functions and how it applied to my life, and then putting that in a way that I could more easily explain it to individuals in a way that was less confusing. But it took me probably 3 or 4 years to kind of work through that process to where I feel comfortable and confident in articulating it. But I couldn't have done it without BG5, Sarah, and Tuck.
Good team playing, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when are you launching your system? When do you launch it? Or have you already?
Yeah, I'm launching now. I'll actually move forward here. On Monday, January 19th, I'm having my first or a career alignment diagnostic. It's going to be a 90-minute conversation workshop. It's a diagnostic for really mid-career professionals who feel like they're in a transition, tired of kind of second guessing. And so we'll work through some of those constraints, help people kind of start the year with a good fresh start. Kind of ideal for mid-career professionals and in that transition. And really, if that resonates, they can scan the details here or follow me on LinkedIn or send me a message, and I'd be happy to just talk. Not a lot of evaluators out there doing what we're doing right now. And so I'm always open to just having a dialogue and talking and listening to where people are and where they need to go next.
Very cool. That's exciting. And I love the brand Reflective Barometer. That's so good. So thank you. Thank you, Brian. Let's see. Let's move to LaTia. LaTia, are you still here?
I am.
I won't, I'm just, what I have discovered about LaTia is that she loves the partnership aspect of the BG5 system, but I won't put that one on you. I'll be quiet and let you take the floor.
So what I'm working on, inspired by BG5, is two things. I've started putting together Unmasked by Design guides, which is my personal brand, using BG5 human design, gene keys, and some other information, particularly for people that went through a divorce, which I call a relationship guide for individuals looking to start their self-discovery journey. That's what I call the self-discovery guide. I love working with leaders, lead by design guide, small teams, and then parents. I love giving parents a guide, which is between 20 to 30 pages, like a mini book about themselves, giving them that clarity that they've been looking for, giving them their strengths and all of the information that is in BG5, Human Design and Gene Keys. And then the second thing I've recently started working on is Unmasked Fire Chats. It's a video podcast, which I have on YouTube, my YouTube channel, Unmasked by Design. And the first episode will drop actually next Wednesday, January 14th. And the podcast is just a fun way to have those real raw conversations with either people I work with, where I ask them questions about their design, where we can have a conversation around who they are, what they do, and just that real raw conversation. Tuck is actually a guest. It was very fun recording with Tuck. And since of course, I didn't do her design because I consider myself a mentee of Tuck, we just really talked about BG5 in a fun way. I got to ask Tuck some interesting questions. I can't wait to share that episode with everyone. But please follow me and subscribe on YouTube. That's where you can watch the video podcasts. And those are the two things that I love working on outside of just regular coaching and consulting services. I am a partnership, solo, environment style type of girl. So I love talking about relationships. I love working with partners, whether it's romantic, whether it's business partners, showing them where the triggers are, showing them why y'all might can't get along, showing them why it might not be a good idea to work together or be together. But if you want to force the relationship, which I don't suggest, I'll give you some solutions on how you can make it work. So that's a little bit about what I'm currently working on.
Yeah, and the creativity and just being in partnership with you as you have taken your certification and looked for different ways to be of service to others. One of the creative things that you've done that you haven't mentioned, which I thought was fascinating, LaTia has been she's played basketball, but she's also been a referee. And one of the offerings that she had, and one of the ways that she worked was with a coach and the athlete. And so I really love the way that you've taken the partnership aspect and looked at different places to go and do that work. The other thing that I know Sarah has a huge heart for, and I don't know if the two of you have talked about it, and that is getting the BG5 into either school systems or working with parents and students. You've had a little bit of experience with that as well.
I have. I have a good friend who is a principal here in Baltimore City, Baltimore City Public Schools. So I'm trying to figure out how to really get it in the school system, get it in the schools. I know asking for the birth information, might be a struggle with parents and those that don't know the birth time. So I'm still working through that process, but that is a huge dream of mine. So if I can work with school systems, work with classrooms on how to even teach, by design. If they know their kids' design and they know how to interact and connect with the kids, I think that would be a huge win. But also for kids to know early on who they are so they can start to advocate for themselves as they're getting older and going through their education life, and they know how to interact with friends and families and adults. And yeah, that's something I would love to do. Work with teachers, schools, and work with parents. So yeah. And coaches, like you mentioned, coaches. I did like a case study with one of my friends who is a basketball coach, and I took her daughter's design, and she said that was so her. And now she coaches her daughter totally different from how she was coaching before. She's an advisor like me. She thought she had that go, go, go energy like a builder, and now she really understands her child a lot more while she's just laid back. She has to be invited in. She understands how she makes decisions on the basketball court now. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Tech. I forgot to mention that.
There's so many applications. I'll just mention two here and then I'll come back to you all with a question. I was recently invited. I have a really good friend who teaches internationally around intuition, and I had done her design years ago. So I'm going to go and speak to and, in quotes, teach, share the BG5 system with her clients. Also, my nephew is the CEO of a company up in Philadelphia, and they have monthly meetings, and he was seeking a topic that would be interesting. And so I'm going to go and speak to the group about their designs and how to interact with one another based on their types. So there are a lot of different applications. And the big conversation today is we're moving towards 2027. We're moving out of the age of planning towards the age of individuality. For each of you, I'm just going to put in quotes, why now? What makes the possibility of moving into the certification and you all using your certification? uh, why now? What's the big value in having this information in your hot little hands as part of your tools for being of service to others? Why now? And I think I'll come back to you, Charmaine, since we haven't heard your voice in a while.
Why now? I think because I've always been on this journey, so nothing's coincidental. The timing is perfect. As an initiator, I realize now that I was always an individual. I always saw things very differently than anyone else did. Um, and I think I can help people get comfortable in the uncomfortable space we're about to enter because a lot of people will be uncomfortable because they don't know how to be an individual. So I think that's why it is now for me. Servant leadership is the thing. And as I've shared with you, I'm retired. So it's my way of giving back. It really is about how do I now truly serve and be of service in a time that is so incredibly volatile and people are trying to figure out how to land.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you. How about you, Brian?
I really like this question, and I love what Charmaine said. Very similarly, I feel like with all of the changes and the volatility that's going on, now is a perfect time. We are seeing the breakdown of a lot of issue systems and institutions. And I feel like this knowledge and the BG5 approach really helps position people in a way to not only find out how they can protect and uh, care for themselves and really find that comfort in who they are in this changing environment. But it also kind of opens up that space to see how others are and how just the energetics of groups, um, uh, just the dynamics that are out there. I think it really opens up an opportunity to um, uh, figure out what does that mean for those individuals. That individualized approach um, is something that's going to be new and different. We're feeling it, and I just feel like this teaching, these courses, the work that we're doing is just critical to help people make that transition just a little bit easier, and with a little bit less fear. And if we could get through these next 20 years without as much fear in the world, we'd be better off. But you can't do that unless you have understanding and knowledge and support from people like all of you.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you, Brian. LaTia.
Like you said, with the era of 2027, it's going to be about the individual. So with all of the layoffs we are seeing here in the United States, with the political circus, I personally know five female friends that got laid off for just, being who they are, take it for what it is. And they are confused. They're confused without their titles. They're confused and, don't know what to do without getting a 2-week paycheck. So it's very important, as Charmaine and Brian both said, that you have to know who you are. You have to know your strengths and talents. We're not going to have the systems to depend on. We're not going to have the same government that we grew up with that we know. So we're going to have to lean on each other. We're going to have to lean on community. We're going to have to create the world that we want to see. But how can we do that if individuals don't know who they are? They don't know what they bring to the table. So that's why I would say now is the perfect time to get the skills to really do that inner work and unpack and really, dig deep so you can know what you have to offer to the new era and the new world we're ushering ourselves into.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I have a good friend. I think I've shared it with a couple of you, Peter Matisse, who has had a business for a couple of years called the Conscious Business Institute, and I read a lot of his writings. And uh, having been immersed in, being a venture capitalist, but then also working around the country, around the world with corporations, he has said we can change the system, but we have to change the individual. Like the system may change, but unless we as individuals are changing, the systems aren't going to change, right? The corporations aren't going to change. And so I have been very excited about this new paradigm of spirit that is different than the age of planning paradigm that we've been working under, where we do whatever it is that we need to do, right? To make money, to survive, so that we can have what we have made up we think we need to have, so that we're not in fear, like Brian talks about, so that we can be this thing that the world has told us we are to be. And that is the system that's not working anymore. The new one says, be who you are authentically. And we have a beautiful system to support people to see who they are authentically so that they can do what their natural gifts inspire them to do, and then have a life of joy and ease and prosperity and creativity, and not be in that place of fear again that Brian has talked about. One other piece I wanted just to mention, my daughter owns her dance center, and she has a lot of choreographers coming from around the country. I've been on the phone with her so many times with these young individuals trying to figure out where they fit in. They have a talent, they have a skill, they have expertise, and they're lost with how to fit in. And the simplicity of sharing their BG5 career designs with those individuals has, the light bulbs that have come on have just been extraordinary. So that's just some of the fun ways I've been able to use the system. I'm going to ask each one of you for whatever your parting words might be. But before you do that, I do want to say two things. I want to remind everyone that I am starting the certification class on January the 28th. Next week, same time, on Wednesday, I am going to do a free webinar providing information. So I'll be doing a lot of talking on that webinar about what's possible, what you'll learn, what you'll access in terms of systems and techniques and strategies going through the certification process. So I would love to see you there. However, I'm going to turn it back over to the three of you. And if there's anything that you would like to say in parting and closing out the webinar in terms of the value that this system has been to you, what you've learned, where you're going, I'd love to hear that. So, Charmaine, I think I keep picking on you.
It's okay. I would just say BG5 for me was life altering for myself and my relationships, my personal relationships. Um, it's just a beautiful thing. It's that simple.
Thank you. And I can't wait to have you in class. Thank you. How about you, Brian?
I would echo what Charmaine said. It's been an amazing journey. It's brought me just clarity, more peace with who I am, the uniquenesses of the evaluator. For those who are, or they find that they're an evaluator, can be kind of overwhelming in the beginning. And, um, um, but the more that I have invested my own just time and energy to learn more about the evaluator decision strategy, and life has just blossomed in ways I would never have imagined. The program itself, Tuck, you've been an amazing mentor. You're a great teacher and role model for us all. Anybody would be lucky to be in your courses, and I would recommend you anytime, all the time. And I'm always happy to show up for you whenever and wherever you need me. Um, the community, the BG5 community is just one of the best communities I've been a part of, and I'm very, very proud and happy to have stumbled upon them and the group so many years ago.
I know. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll just do it publicly here. It would be awesome to have you come assist, Brian, if you are open and available, and we'll talk about that later. How about that? Thank you. All right, LaTia Minnie.
I would I would say sign up for BG5 if you really want to dig deep and know who you are and know who other people are. I recently did a post, I think it was on Instagram, and I said, if you cross my path, I'm gonna do your design. That's I'm gonna do your design. I need to know who you are, how we interact, how we're gonna vibe together. So that's the beauty of BG5. So if you're questioning it, please sign up. Tuck will be a great instructor. She will make you laugh and giggle. Um, the classes are very interactive. So what you learn, you're going to put into practice right away. And as Brian said, Tuck is an amazing mentor. So that's my departing words for BG5. It's a great system and you won't regret it.
I sure hope y'all come write my epitaph when the day comes. Thank you so much for your kind, kind words. I was looking at the chat box just to repeat again. Uh, the certification class that I'm teaching starts January the 28th. That's Wednesday at the end of this month because we're in January 2026. It's the same day, Wednesday at the same time every day. And if you are on the fence, next week is when I will do the free webinar and provide information about all 3 semesters. What is BG5? What is the value? What is the benefit? So that you too can go through the process and have a certification like is it the 3 of y'all? Yes, including Vanessa, who are now certified consultants. Sarah, I know you were in the background typing into the chat box. Is there anything that you would like to voice since you've been so quiet before we close?
Yeah, I have been quiet because I just wanted to give everyone a chance to speak, but wanted to just thank Brian, Charmaine, and LaTia and Vanessa for being here today and representing the 4 types. Um, and a question that I get a lot in this role of is like, how do I go out there and start my business? Or, what templates do you provide us? And I like to keep it pretty open intentionally because you can see how, Brian, Charmaine, LaTia, and Vanessa are all going in very different routes with this information based on their design. And it brings me so much satisfaction hearing how they're doing and like seeing how they're just perfectly embodying their type and their design. Like that's what this is all about. There's no cookie cutter path to this. Everyone's on their own journey. And I just love to see you guys all embodying this. So thank you so much for sharing that with the community. And if you're unsure of what your next steps are, but you find yourself coming to BG5, I see a lot of familiar names on here, and we've interacted or you've been to a few webinars. Please feel free to book a call with me. I'll put that again in the chat. It's a free 15-minute call. I almost always go over, it's usually 30 minutes. And we'll take a look at your design and we will point you in the right direction for the resources that are going to help you right now. And then we can connect. And in the future, when the timing is right, we have that relationship and we can help support you at the Institute. So I'd really like to connect with you if that's something you would like to do as well. And I will pass it back over to Tuck. Thank you for hosting today.
Yeah, and Sarah, thank you so much for saying that because I wonder if it's an express builder thing. I get really, really excited as well when I see what individuals are doing with the system and how creative we are being in creating our own systems and bodies of work using the system and the assessment of BG5. So Vanessa, you're not here. LaTia, you are. Brian and Charmaine, thank you so much for your time and your expertise, sharing your experience in going through the certification process as well as what you're doing. You all check them out because they are doing great things in the world. And if this appeals to you, come join Charmaine and I as we start class again, January the 28th, Wednesday, this same time. And if there's nothing else, if there are no questions, then we will say goodbye. Thank you all so much for being here. And I do see Eugene. Hey, Eugene. Thank you all so much for being here. And hopefully I'll hear some of you next Wednesday. Thank you.